What's going on, Felters? Welcome in. We got our New York Giants 2024 season in review, off-season outlook. I'm Colin Tong. Not looking forward to this one, folks. Joining me is Reagan Loescher, my co-host. He's probably looking forward to this one much more than I am. I'll probably catch some heat, but, how you doing, my friends?
I'm doing good, and I am looking forward to this because I think there were there were definitely some positives to take away from this. Like, Giants fans, if you're tuning in right now, we're not going to just shit on your team right now. I mean, we're going to talk about, their struggles in 2024, but I definitely think there was stuff to take away. And, guess what? We get to talk about the hypotheticals, what we want this team to do in the offseason, what we want them to do in the draft. We'll get into some other questions, but how do we fix this Giants team, right? I mean, there's definitely ways, and we've seen Brian Daboll get it done before. He's had this team in the playoffs. So why not next year and probably his hot seat year where it's, win or go home. So I would say all of his chips are in. They're on red on the roulette table. And is it rolling on red? Are they in the playoffs, or is it unfortunately landing on green or black? And Brian Daboll's out of a job.
Yeah, I mean, we shall see. It's kind of tough to believe that him and Joe Schoen have their jobs, but let's start with you, Reagan. What grade did you give my New York Football Giants?
So I gave him a D+ because while the season was a flop, I never had high expectations for him anyway.
I knew that was going to be your point. I knew it was going to be your point. Like a 6.5 win total preseason. You didn't have high expectations, so you don't want to really bash him.
Yeah, and plus, honestly, like a big reason that they honestly probably went from like an F to a D+ is this team didn't give up. Like, they kicked the shit out of the Colts in week 17 where, at that point, you have a lot of injuries. No, and it sucks for you as a fan, but like from another takeaway is like, look, this team didn't give up. Like, they were still fighting hard for Brian Daboll. Like, they wanted to win. So that tells me ultimately that like there's some stuff to take away. Because if you really think like, to me, a team that's an F is by the end of the season, like they're losing games tragically. Like, they're not even competing. Like, they beat a team that needed to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, that looked ahead of them. And, they put up 45 points at home with freaking Drew Lock as your quarterback. So, yeah, that's a D+. I mean, Brian Daboll clearly didn't lose the locker room, and I think that game single-handedly might be the reason why, they're drafting 3 and, getting potentially one of these franchise quarterbacks, or they could both be busted. And it's like, hey, that was a blessing in disguise. But B, why Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are there? Because I think, if they lose that game, they're probably like, all right, we're picking 1 overall. We need to reset it. But I think that may have been a deciding factor for John Mara, where he's like, look, like, they still have the locker room. These guys are still fighting hard in week 17. Like, let's give them 1 more year to see what can happen.
I do see that point. I somewhat agree with it. I think it certainly could have played a factor in John Mara deciding to keep these guys. I think ultimately John Mara, just because he's one of the guys pushing ownerships in general, stop firing coaches so much. Look how much money us as owners are paying head coaches that are no longer here. Like, I think it's like upwards of like 100 million, right? Like, that's a problem. So I think John Mara is one of the guys pushing for that. So he wants to show more patience. I honestly, I'm shocked that Schoen and Daboll still have jobs. I'm kind of numb to it. I'm like, all right, let's just see what happens here. Now, the only problem is you're going to this offseason, going to be very desperate, but I'll get to that later. My grade for the New York Giants this season is a big old fat F. I don't care that they were only expected to win 6.5 games. You're the 30th total offense, 31st scoring offense, the 24th total defense, 21st scoring defense. You let 2 captains walk, Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney. What did both of them do? All pro seasons. What did you bring in? Brian Burns. Good season, not a dominant season for a guy you're paying $30 million. I don't think Burns was the problem on this team by any stretch of the means. That's not my point. I'm just saying the way you allocated your funds, it didn't really work out for you this year. And you lost that leadership in the locker room, which players have said was they missed that. They missed Saquon Barkley's presence in the locker room. They missed Xavier McKinney's presence in the locker room. I think you could argue this was the worst team in football this year, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Offensively, Daniel Jones, failed experiment. They finally moved off of him. Good. I'm happy they moved off Daniel Jones. But the fact you gave him that contract and you ended up releasing him mid-season, and there was that whole fiasco, problem. The fact that you did the offseason hard knocks and all your moves were under a magnifying glass. Then you go and see what Barkley and McKinney do. I mean, the Giants were the doormat of the NFL this year. Everyone was just taking jabs at Giants every opportunity they have, and rightfully so. They were pathetic out there, pathetic. And then, of course, it's like DeVito comes back in. Garbage. Tim Boyle, garbage. Drew Lock, garbage, besides for a legacy game against the Colts, which knocked us out of the first overall pick. So now it's like you might not get a quarterback, which I'll get to that later if I even want one in the first place. Could be a blessing in disguise, Giants fans. Another negative, Andrew Thomas, your star left tackle, which as we've
Boo
seen,
his fat ass.
As we've seen. No, it's Evan Neal. We boo his fat ass. We don't boo Andrew Thomas, dude. Come on. Andrew Thomas, your star left tackle, which we have seen the offense last year, too, fell off a cliff when he got hurt because they just can't seem to get the offensive line right for the past 15 goddamn years, and that's your only anchor. Well, he got hurt again. Lower leg. Problem. The only positive here is the rookie class. Joe Schoen did hit it out of the park with his rookie class. Obviously, Malik Nabers, stud. Tyler Nubin, your day 2 safety, was an Iron Man, played a ton on the back ends, was solid. I was very happy with what he did this year. Now, granted, would I rather have had Cooper DeJean? Yes, but Nubin, very good rookie year. And Andrew Phillips, their slot corner that they took from Kentucky in the 3rd round, was a stud, especially in the run game as well. So you do have some good piece. Theo Johnson showed some flashes. Tyrone Tracy, I mean, you know, losing Barkley obviously kills, but Tyrone Tracy did show a ton of flashes. And also a guy, yeah, he's older, he's 25, but does not have a lot of tread in those tires because he was a wide receiver previously. So the rookie class also, I think, is the reason that that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll might have kept their job, because John Mara is like, okay, I see progress here in terms of drafting, because that first draft from Joe Schoen doesn't look very good. You're about to make a decision on Kayvon Thibodeau's 5th-year option. They'll probably pick that up because he's not going to deny his 5th overall and 7th overall options from his first draft. That looks really bad. And you're not picking up Evan Neal's 5th-year option. So, I mean, I guess the only positive was the rookie class, but damn, they got a lot of work to do, and I hope they're not shopping too desperate this offseason.
No, and that obviously is a big positive, the rookie class. Like, you know, Tracy, he really impressed me. I wish he got more touches this year. You know, it took a little bit of time for him to fully take over, but I mean, the dude balled out. You know, obviously he had that crucial fumble in Carolina, but to me, he was legit. And, you know, I was, you know, one of the biggest proponents of him taking over coming into the year, because I thought the path was there for them. So I'm glad, you know, he got the opportunity. Obviously Nabers was a stud. And if they are able to figure out the quarterback position, I mean, what's his ceiling? So, yeah, that's why it's like, you know, with a good rookie class like that, too, I don't really know how you could call it an F. I get it, you're, you know, in your sad boy hours, but I feel like just on that fact alone, that at least warrants a D, right? I mean, D minuses aren't real, I don't think, right?
No, you could do D minus. D minus.
Is that even a real grade? I thought that wasn't a grade.
No, D minus plays. You can't do like F plus.
No, but I think,
you know.
Is D minus actually a grade? I thought it was just D
like
and then F.
60, like a 61 is like a D minus, you know? Like
I guess you would know. I never got any of those. I was just straight A's, baby. But yeah, I mean, I would think alone on that, like that would keep me out of the F category.
I mean, dude, they were embarrassing all year. Like MetLife Stadium was empty the second half of the season. You know, like everyone was just busting their balls as Barkley had a historic season. Xavier McKinney had how many interceptions? Like, they were the doormat of the league, and they were getting consistently blown out. And people were honestly talking about the planes flying over the stadium more so than the actual football team towards the end of the season, right? So that's why it's an F, even though, yeah, there's some positives. There's just way too much negatives that outweigh it, which is why I gave them an F. But heading into this offseason, Reagan, the Giants have $43 million in cap space. They will clear more. There's some guys that they're going to release. So I anticipate them having around $50 million to play with. And, you know, with that Jones contract now off the books, they do have a little bit of dead cap this year. But, you know, going into the future, their books are pretty wide open. So they can make some splash plays here. Some key free agents. Nothing super significant. Azeez Ojulari, your 3rd pass rusher, definitely showed some flashes this year. Finally got healthy again. He's been hurt like almost his whole career, but he had a couple games where when Thibodeau was out, Ojulari looked really good, but I see him leaving. I think it's either going to be a prove-it deal on another team that gives him an opportunity. I don't see him coming back as a 3rd pass rusher for the Giants. Darius Slayton, you know, not the sexiest name, but he's been a steady presence in this receiver room for the past 5 years. So, and you do need help at receiver, I believe. Like if Slayton's gone, I think you definitely need another weapon. Jason Pinnock, starting safety the past 2 years. Greg Van Roten, he was on a 1-year deal at guard, but this offensive line's so bad. Van Roten was also bad this year, so he's gone. So they do have some money to play with.
On the Greg Van Roten experience, it's not all that.
It's not all that. It's not a fun ride, but they got some cap space to play with. Obviously, some major holes. Quarterback. We'll talk about Matthew Stafford. Is that a real thing? I think you need a wide receiver too. You need all the help you can get on offensive line. You need help at defensive tackle next to Dexter Lawrence. I mean, that was a positive as well. Dexter Lawrence was a beast, but then he got hurt too. So, of course, terrible. You need help in the secondary. A lot of holes to fill, Reagan. What do you think the Giants should do this offseason? And I want to know your thoughts, particularly at the quarterback position. Is Matthew Stafford a real thing? Can they make this happen?
The thing that sucks is it just doesn't I think the team should tank, but they're not going to because you just brought back and I don't mean tank, but rebuild.
Actually do a full rebuild and not try to fast track it like they did after the 2022 season.
Because I think no matter what, it's not going to work out. Like you can say, they could trade for Matthew Stafford, and I still don't even know if they're a playoff team. Like, I'm sorry, but we've seen how. I don't know. I just can't imagine him going to that roster, because it's not you got some pieces on the defense, but if I'm looking at quarterback wise, that's the tough thing. I would imagine they may draft someone. I mean, Jackson Dart's definitely an interesting name in the second round. I mean, he's been getting a lot of buzz, but
for the first round.
But honestly. I was going to say, with all that buzz, I think he might end up getting into the first round, especially with so many teams need quarterbacks. I wouldn't hate it, looking at it if you guys, gave. I think you might call me crazy, but maybe sign a quarterback like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance. I'm not saying start him, but just sign him and see if you can do anything with it, because the season's going to be lost. I mean, a Justin Fields, a Mac Jones, there's a lot of young guys that were high capital picks that didn't work out. So I would not hate you guys bringing in one of those regardless of what you do. I mean, if you're looking at the veteran route, I mean, you could bring in Andy Dalton maybe as the bridge quarterback, maybe helps you compete now. So I definitely think they have bigger holes. It's just tough because what I think they should do is what they won't do, because they still have a GM and coach who want to keep their job. So I would say, I don't know. I could also see them just throwing the bag at Sam Darnold. It's so tough.
But I hope they don't do that, dude. This is the worst case scenario as a fan, where you're just in quarterback hell, and it's finally your opportunity to get one. You have the 3rd overall pick. You have the cap space. And what is your best option? An aging Kirk Cousins, an aging Russell Wilson, a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford. That what people are talking about us trading the number 3 pick for? That is asinine. There's no way you should do that. Joe Schoen should be fired before he has the opportunity to even submit that trade offer. Honestly, you're not giving up the 3rd overall pick for a 37-year-old quarterback with the holes you have in this roster, and a 37-year-old quarterback that wants a new deal as well, right? I think they're going to bring in a veteran of some sort. I think Justin Fields is the one that piques my interest the most, because, he's not a polished passer. I don't know how well he would fit into the Daboll scheme, but I trust Daboll to use his talents to kind of build the offense around him. And at least he has an elite trait, which is his legs, that they can utilize for this offense. Now, Fields wouldn't be the best option in terms of Malik Nabers' development to the next level. But then again, we just saw Malik Nabers go off with Tim Boyle and Tommy DeVito, right? So I think he's kind of quarterback proof, but you'd like to see him get the ball more downfield, because they couldn't push the ball downfield at all. So that was a problem. I think Russell Wilson goes back to Pittsburgh. I mean, Kirk Cousins, really? You're not going to give up capital. I think the most likely scenario is they take a quarterback at 3. If they don't move up to 1 with Tennessee, I can see them giving up. I saw a mock trade float around today. 2025 and 2026 3rd-round picks, obviously along with 3rd overall, to go up to 1 to get a guy. Take Cam Ward / Shedeur Sanders, bring in a veteran to be the bridge. There's no way they leave this offseason without adding 2 quarterbacks to this room.
My guess is they go Andy Dalton as the bridge, and then they bring in Quinn Ewers in the second round because they got to kind of reach up on him because Dart ends up going. So that is my guess, and it's just not exactly what they want. But the good thing is they either get Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at 3, which is going to, set up whoever takes over next year with some nice premium blue chip players.
Yeah, that's what I want. At number 3, I want Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I don't want to take one of these quarterbacks because
I think they're reaching on a quarterback regardless, whether it's in the first round or the second round. Like I think they're at, what do they pick? I believe they pick 35, right?
34.
Round? 34. So I think they're going to end up reaching on a quarterback, whether it's Ewers, Milrow, even Kyle McCord. I think, with Dart getting pushed into the first round, like they're going to panic after they didn't get a guy. And they're like, look, like we can't go in with Andy Dalton. Like we need a young quarterback that at least we can sell ownership on, where like, hey, we can switch to this guy midway through.
Or they are the team that reaches on Dart in the first and they move back into the first to get that 5th-year option.
Which I don't hate.
I don't hate that. If you're going to give me Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at 3 and you're getting me Jackson Dart at the back end of 1, because I don't think the drop-off from Sanders to Dart is like that significant.
No, and the nice thing is, too, like at 34, that really does give you the option to trade in. If you ultimately are going to take a quarterback at 34, why not trade into like 31 or 32? Give up a little bit of picks, but have that 5th-year option.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think they're going to go quarterback at the top because this is what's going to happen here, right? The Giants, based off of 2024 win percentage, have the most difficult schedule in football next year. They're going to reach on a quarterback at 3, or they're going to move up to 1, and they're going to take one of these guys. If they struggle, which is probably likely based off of the offense and how it's constructed right now, well, then Daboll's fired. Shane's fired. Here comes your new regime. Oh, what? With after your rookie quarterback didn't have the best year, now it's a new scheme and everything year 2, which is just everyone knows the worst thing for a young quarterback, right? Which is why having Joe Schoen make these decisions is maybe not the smartest thing out of John Mara. Now, they have a ton of cap space, Reagan. Are there any players in free agency that you think would make a lot of sense for the New York Giants? Because I got a couple guys in mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tough thing. It's such a tough team to really like pinpoint because, I guess I got to go with not what I would think, but like what ownership's going to do. And I feel like they're going to spend every dime to make this team competitive. So I would think offensive line needs to be something addressed.
Yes, 100%.
So I would, I look at, maybe Brandon Sheriff, pay him to come in and be the guard. I could see Ryan Kelly, with the Colts, if you can get him to come in. I mean, a lot of these guys, like I wouldn't say a veteran, but some of these older guys that are not older, but like, closer to their age of 30s, like overpaying them to come in. Like I could see Note Boom with the Rams, especially if you do make that trade for Stafford, it makes some sense. But I don't know. I just think they need to go offensive line, and they probably will overpay whoever they get because that's the unfortunate thing that, yeah, it's a big market, but when you're a team like that where the future's not bright, you got to pay the premium to get these guys to come in. So they're going to overpay whatever lineman they end up getting.
I agree with you 100%. I think offensive line is probably the first position they sign, and they knew last offseason it was a problem. You gave Runyon a 2-year deal. He was not very good. He's under contract for 1 more year. Van Rotten's gone. You got to think Evan Neal's going inside to guard, but you can't go into the season with him at your right guard spot, and be comfortable. If Trey Smith gets away from Kansas City, oh, Jesus Christ, give him a blank check. Put Trey Smith, a Super Bowl champ, an all-pro, at right guard, and let's rock. Let's rock. Or at left guard, next to Andrew Thomas, and we really got our left side hammered down. JMS at center, John Michael Schmitz, underwhelming thus far. He improved in year 2, but still, like, I'm not sold on him where, yeah, if you want to bring in a veteran like Ryan Kelly, as you mentioned, I would love it. Let's move JMS to guard, right? Like, that'd be fine with me. You got a Luminor at right tackle who was very serviceable this year. I mean, he ultimately had to slide over to left tackle when Thomas got hurt, but he's got versatility. He can also play guard. So, love a Luminor. You have him for 1 more year. I think Trey Smith would be a home run signing for the Giants. That's my number 1 target. They need to address the interior defensive line as well. They need someone next to Dexter Lawrence because it was if Lawrence was off the field, teams were getting like 7 yards of carry on this team. I mean, it was terrible. They were so bad against the run, and just think about how dominant Dexter Lawrence is. Every team would double Dexter Lawrence, and they just go right at the other guy. And it was not a problem. Now, this is a really deep class at interior defensive line, so I could see them address that on day 2 instead of paying big for one of these guys. I do think they'll pay big for someone in the secondary. We know from the offseason Hard Knocks last year, Joe Schoen told Shane Bowen, you're either getting Brian Burns or a corner. And they got Burns, right? DJ Reed makes a lot of sense. Charvarius Ward makes a lot of sense. Rasul Douglas, even from Buffalo, makes a lot of sense. I think they can get one of those 3 guys. You know, Pinnock's is a free agent. I could see them bringing him back as well. They don't value safety as much. They just let McKinney walk. They didn't want to pay him $18 million. So I don't see him shopping at the top of the safety market for Javon Holland or Hufanga from San Francisco, but that's definitely a position that has to be addressed as well. But offensive line, 100%. Cornerback, 100% will be addressed in free agency. And honestly, quarterback, we touched on it. I don't want to give Sam Darnold a massive contract. I think Russell Wilson stays in Pittsburgh. Give me Justin Fields in free agency. Give me Abdul Carter at number 3 or Travis Hunter. Either one, I am cool with it. And I don't give a fuck if we have to give on Thibodeau. No, I don't want Ted at 3. I don't want Ted at 3. We just took a receiver at 6 last year. I don't want to double dip at that spot. I think you got to go defense there with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter if you can. Or Travis Hunter could play receiver. And you know what? I'd rather Travis Hunter play corner full time and come in and play some red zone, because the Giants did have the worst red zone offense in football, and Travis Hunter clearly is a very dynamic threat in the red zone. So that's how I would go. Move up from round 2 in the back of round 1, get Jackson Dart. Justin Fields, Jackson Dart, Tyrone Tracy. Let's get Trey Smith at the offensive line with AT, Illuminord right tackle, Runyon at left guard, JMS. Okay. Malik Nabers out wide, Wandell on the slot. I do think they need another receiver, so we'll see. We'll see how they address that. They'll probably sign someone in free agency in that 2nd or 3rd tier. Travis Hunter, maybe, And then I think, that offense has a little bit more juice to it, because this offense is really bad. I expect the defense to bounce back next season to an extent. It depends on what they do in the secondary, because it was a problem, and they do need to shore up the middle of that defense. I don't know what happened to Bobby Okereke this year under Shane Bowen. I don't know what happened to Deonte Banks under Shane Bowen. That's another big negative, was how he really took a big step back. They need help, but you know what? You still have Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Brian Burns that can get after the quarterback. We need Thibodeau to be the number 5 overall pick, though, and kind of be more of a presence, because he's invisible too much, in my opinion. But there's definitely some talent in that defense, especially if you add Abdul Carter to that edge. I don't care if you have Thibodeau and his 5th-year options up. Look what the Eagles do. Invest in the trenches over and over again. And Abdul Carter is probably going to be a better player than Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, I would probably say so. Yeah, I'm fired up, bro. I could see 5-win season next year. Let's get it.
Oh, come on, dude. At least give me like an 8-win season. I'm not even asking for a winning record. Could we just be like competitive? Could we have like
I disagree.
Like games that matter
anything
in December?
No, bro. You do not want that. You want them to fucking clean house, dude. If that happens, that they win 8-9 games, you open the door to bring them back again. So I ultimately would say just fucking be like, I hope this season's a wash. If we do go quarterback, we see some flashes, and it's like, all right, get some coach in there, get a new GM. Ideally, they don't draft a quarterback at all this year, but let's be honest, they are.
They are.
The most ideal thing would be them, maybe actually, I know you don't really want Stafford, but if they did give up some stuff for him, and it's like, all right, either, hey, we're a playoff team, or hey, it didn't work out, but at least now we're cleaning house and drafting a rookie in 2026 with a whole new coach and a whole new GM. So it's not the worst idea for them to go a veteran where they're trying to compete now, or if they went Kirk Cousins, at least you're like, hey, it either works out or it doesn't, and we completely just torch the house down.
Yeah, I don't hate that route at all. Like just going with a 1-year stopgap and just, hey, let's see
it's kind
what
of
happens.
nice. Because either way, it's a good outcome for you guys.
We've seen it work out. Baker Mayfield, it worked out in Tampa Bay, a 1-year option, and then he got a deal.
These guys are a little older, so I don't know if there's a Baker Mayfield. I guess Sam Darnold would be that, but he's not getting a 1-year deal, So
Sam Darnold is now the year removed. He's the year removed. He was,
That would be your Justin Fields, your potentially Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. I would like to see somebody give Trey Lance a chance, but we'll see.
I don't know, dude. If Dallas was going with Cooper Rush over him, they didn't even give him a look. That's probably a problem, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's get Drock in here. What do you say?
Yeah, let's get Drock in here.
Shitty season, especially to attend half the games at home. Whatever. Let's dive into this question. Coming from our man, Giants fan, Pop Tart. Good question he is asking. What are your thoughts on trading for Matt Stafford? I know you guys covered this a little bit, but signing Kupp after he's released and drafting Abdul Carter at number 3 in this offseason.
I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. My only thing is, what kind of contract are we giving Matthew Stafford? He wants a new deal. If we're going to give him a 3-year deal, the state of this roster, that sounds like a terrible idea. And I know Stafford is probably 3rd best quarterback in the NFC, right? I mean, Hurts, Daniels, Stafford, that's kind of the top 3 guys, right? Argue your order, right? I mean,
1 Hurts, 2 Daniels, 3 Stafford. Oh, that was easy.
Yeah, you can argue your order, so we're not going to get into that right now. But but still, he's 37 years old. How much more does he have in the tank, right? Like, I don't want to give him a fat contract. Now, signing Kupp once he gets released, like, okay, that's a little. Now we're talking, right? The Kenny just laid out something that I'd be very intrigued by, but it depends on how the numbers work out.
I don't hate it. I mean, it basically comes back to the point where if you are going to go the Stafford route, you might as well get Kupp. Like, if you're going for Stafford, you're trying to compete now. It's just tough because if you give him the extension, then it's like, all right, didn't work out. We're firing everybody, and now we got like a new coach coming in, and it's like, we're going to stick with Stafford, or are we just going to get him off our books completely? But then that's a lot of dead cap. So it's just a weird spot. Ultimately, I don't think they go and get Stafford. So that means that you're not going to get Kupp for sure. I think, the most likely thing of what you just said is getting Abdul Carter at 3. And I think that would be the best thing they could do. But then again, it's just like, it's so tough because it's like, you should have just fired Joe Schoen and you should have fired Brian Daboll. So, the guys in the position were doing what's best for the team and not what's best for their jobs.
I agree 100%. That's it. I agree with you. I want Abdul Carter at number 3. And I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. And also, all this smoke with Stafford, like, I get it. The Giants did just hire, I think it was like his brother-in-law as like the assistant quarterback coach. Like, where there's smoke, there's fire. You see Matthew Stafford's wife like talking shit on the podcast and stuff. And I think that's kind of what I've read. The Rams are kind of sick of like the outside noise. Then again, like Stafford, like you still won the division last year. You were right there with Philadelphia, the team that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they probably played the best game at any team that Philly played on their 4 games.
Yeah.
Playoff
so why would they move off Stafford?
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. The Giants have a lot of issues. They got to address the quarterback position, but this will wrap up our Giants recap. I'm just happy I don't got to talk about this 2024 Giants team anymore. Let's go.